Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be exploring Class 7 Science Chapter 3, Fibre to Fabric. Now we have done this chapter in Class 6 as well, so there's just a bit of addition to what we have learned from Chapter 6, Class 6, I mean. So first to talk about how you make, what are the two types of wool. There's synthetic wool and natural wool. I mean, synthetic fiber, okay, and natural fibers. And then they talked about all the little things that we talked about in class 6. You can watch that video so you will understand better here. Let's talk about how you take out the wool from the sheep. So how can you use the wool and what is the process? So shearing is the process of shaving wool from an animal along with a thin sheet of skin. Now this does not harm the animals and they kind of enjoy it. It's just like haircuts. Scouring is removing dirt or grease from the hair of the sheep. Sorting is separation of hair according to texture. Separation of burrs is thin unwanted strands of wool. So the thin strands are picked out from the hair and then the fiber is scoured again and dried. Dyeing is coloring the hair. Rolling of wool, the fiber obtained is combed and then rolled into yarn. And then they will talk about the sources of wool. So there are many sources of wool. It's not only sheep, but there's goat, yak, fur of llama, camel, alpaca, and many more. In Tibet and Ladakh, sheep and yak are very common and very famous to get wool from. Angora wool is obtained from the Angora goat, and they are found in hilly areas such as Jammu and Kashmir. Underfur of Kashmiri goats is known as pashmina. So you must have heard pashmina shawls or something like that, and that's just the underfur of Kashmiri goats, and it's very costly because it's very nice and soft and it has a very good texture to it. Now, the sheep has two forms of hair. It has the thick beard on top, which is kind of not that soft, it's very hard kind of thing. And there's soft wool near the skin, and normally the wool is made of this fine, nice, soft wool. Selective breeding. Selective breeding is when the farmers breed the type of sheep which has good hair so that their offsprings or their children will have good hair too. So they will get more profit in their money. Silk. Now we're going to talk about silk. Silkworms. Silk is obtained from silkworms. Sericulture is the breeding of silkworms. Remember that. Life history of silk moth. Now, what is the life cycle of the silkworm? First, the female silk moth. Silk moth is just like the adult name of silkworms. Like how you have adults and children and humans, they have silk moth and silkworms. So, female silk moth lay eggs, not just like one or two eggs. They lay like hundreds of them at a time. Now caterpillars hatch or silkworms hatch, eat and get ready for the next stage, which is the pupa. Then they weave a net around to live in. So that weaving net is not yet the silk that we want. Silkworms move their head in H shape, in a shape like this, and then some fibers are secreted. The fiber secretors is just made of protein, so when they come in contact with air, they form silk. Now, this is not the silk yet that we want. The caterpillar then covers their selves with the silk and forms pupa. The covering is called cocoon. The caterpillar turns into silk moth in the pupa. We get silk from the cocoon now. The cocoon is just like the covered part, so it gets more softer and more nicer. Mulberry silkworms is very famous for silk. and they are soft and elastic and shiny. So there are lots of silkworms, lots of species, but mulberry silkworms are quite famous. Rearing silkworms. To breed silkworms or rear or raise them, you need to give the eggs heat or warmth for them to hatch. Then mulberry silkworms eat mulberry leaves, and that's why they have different type of silk produced. Um, Processing silk is when you put the silk that you've got from the cocoon in the sun or boil them to separate the fiber from unwanted stuff like beard, dirt, or something like that. And then reeling is making the silk and threads. With that, we have finished this chapter. So it's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Till then, take care and bye bye.